My name is Callie Voss. I'm 36 years old. 4 weeks ago, I stood in the front row at my mom's funeral and held it together. 3 weeks ago, I found a letter tucked behind the backing of an old bathroom vanity mirror. A letter my dad wrote the year I was born. It said, "I had the test run. I know she isn't mine, but I will raise her as my own. If you ever breathe a word of this to her, I will tell everyone what you and your sister did to my mother's property. This conversation is done. Ray." My dad died 8 years ago. My mom never said a single word. There was a phone number on the back of that envelope. Faded, written in pencil, but every digit was still readable. Called it. The man who answered said my name before I could even get out a hello. That phone call blew open 36 years of silence. And what came spilling out about my family, about my mom, about a piece of farmland in rural Ohio, and a lie that had been holding everything together, it changed every single story I'd ever believed about myself. Before I get into all of it, I just want to say, if you're the kind of person who connects with real family stories, the messy kind, the kind nobody talks about at Thanksgiving dinner, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. It's free and it means the world to me. And drop your city and your local time in the comments below. I genuinely want to know where in the world y'all are watching from. I read every single one. Okay. Let me take you back to a Wednesday afternoon in November. It was the first time I walked into my mom's bedroom alone since the day she passed. The house still smelled exactly like her, rose water and vanilla candles she burned every winter. Except now those smells didn't mean she was home. They meant she used to be. I stood in the doorway for probably 2 whole minutes before I made myself step inside. The hospice team had already stripped the bed. Her reading glasses were still on the nightstand next to a mug with dried tea at the bottom. Nobody had touched any of it. I hadn't been able to bring myself to. My boyfriend, Jake, had offered to come with me. I told him I needed to do it myself. He didn't push. He never pushes when it matters. I started with the big dresser by the window. Top drawer, bobby pins, expired coupons, a little notepad with her grocery lists in that loopy handwriting of hers. Second drawer, old birthday cards. I found one I'd made her when I was 9. Crayoned flowers around the edge. "Happy birthday, Mom, you are my favorite person." I had to put that one face down and just breathe for a second. Third drawer, some old insurance papers, a property tax notice from 2018, a bundle of receipts held together with a rubber band. Nothing unusual. Nothing that explained anything. Then I moved to the vanity. My mom sat at that vanity every single morning for as long as I can remember. She'd do her makeup slowly, like it was something she enjoyed. That mirror had watched her go from a young woman to a grandmother. I reached out to wipe dust off the wooden frame and the whole backing shifted. It had come apart from the base, loose like it had been that way for years. I tilted it forward. A yellowed envelope slid out from behind the glass and landed face up on the vanity top. My mom's name was written on the front. Diane. And the handwriting, I knew it before I even picked it up. My dad wrote me a birthday card every year from the time I could read until the year he couldn't hold a pen anymore. I would know that handwriting from across a crowded room. I picked up the envelope. It had been sealed and never opened. I sat down on the edge of the stripped mattress and opened it. One sheet of paper. Thin like notebook paper. Dated February of 1989. My birth year. Diane. I had the test run when she was 8 months old. I know she isn't mine. But she is my daughter and I am choosing her. I will keep choosing her every day. If you ever tell her the truth, I will tell everyone what you and Carol did to my mother's land. This is the last time we speak about it. Ray. I read it 3 times. Each time a different line hit me differently. Isn't mine. What you did. My mother's land. The room went completely still. Not quiet still. Like the air itself stopped moving. My father, Ray Voss. The man who taught me to drive a stick shift in an empty church parking lot. Who flew from Columbus to Denver on a red-eye when I had emergency surgery at 28. Who held my hand the last week of his life and told me I was the best thing he'd ever done. That man had known since I was 8 months old that I wasn't his biological child. And he stayed. He stayed and never said a word, not once in 28 years. I flipped the envelope over. On the back, written in different ink, blue pen looking newer like someone had added it years later, was a phone number. 10 digits. No name. No explanation. I sat there holding that envelope for a long time. The light changed in the room. Shadows moved across the floor. I couldn't tell you if it was 30 minutes or an hour. My hands weren't shaking yet. That came later. Right then, I was just trying to figure out which parts of my life had been real. Called Jake from the kitchen. I couldn't stay in that room anymore. I found something, I told him. Behind the mirror. A letter from my dad. He was at the house in 25 minutes. I don't even remember what else I said on the phone. I just remember standing at the kitchen counter staring at the letter laid flat on the counter like it was evidence at a scene, which honestly it kind of was. Jake read it once. Set it down. Read it again. Looked at me. I know what it says, I told him before he could speak. He pulled out a chair and sat next to me. He didn't try to explain it away, didn't say maybe it doesn't mean what you think. Jake has always been good at that, knowing when not to fill the silence with noise. I grabbed the little spiral notebook I carry everywhere. Old habit from my years as a paralegal, I write everything down. I opened to a blank page and wrote 4 questions. Who is my biological father? What did Mom do to Grandma Lorraine's land? Why did Dad hide this instead of telling me? What is the phone number? You don't have to call tonight, Jake said. I looked at the number on the back of the envelope. Yeah, I said. But I'm going to. I'd spent 36 years trusting one version of my life. The story of a happy family in a small house outside Millbrook, Ohio. A mom who canned tomatoes every August, a dad who coached Little League, a childhood that felt safe and simple. I trusted it because there was never a reason not to. No cracks, no slips, nothing that didn't add up. Turns out the cracks were just hidden behind a mirror. That phone number was the first thread. And I was going to pull it. I didn't sleep. I was on the front porch by 5:30 in the morning with a cup of coffee going cold in my hands, the letter in my lap, fog sitting low over the yard. At 7 o'clock, I dialed the number. It rang twice. A man answered. His voice was deep, a little rough around the edges, the kind of voice that had some years in it. Callie. I stopped breathing. I hadn't said a word. Hadn't cleared my throat. Hadn't even exhaled. Callie, he said again. Softer this time. Like he was being careful with the name. I'd been waiting for this call for 9 years. I gripped the porch railing with my free hand. Who are you? I asked. How do you know my name? A long pause. Then, my name is Walter Greer. Your father, Ray, he came to see me before he died. He told me about the letter. He told me that one day you'd find it, and when you called this number, I should be ready. I closed my eyes. Down the street, a neighbor's dog was barking at something. November in Ohio. Ray came to see you. In the fall of 2015. About 6 months before he passed. He drove out to my place in Grover, sat at my kitchen table for almost 3 hours. Walter's voice was steady but careful, like a man walking a path he'd walked many times in his head. The man who raised you, he drove 40 minutes when he could barely get around anymore, to sit with a man he had every reason to be angry at. My dad, who spent his last year on a walker, had made that drive. There are things you need to know, Walter said. But not over the phone. Can we meet? I would have driven to Grover that same day. But my Aunt Carol showed up first. And that, right there, is where this story takes its first sharp turn. I was still on the porch processing Walter's voice when a tan minivan turned into the driveway. No call ahead. No text. Just my mom's younger sister, Carol Dutton, climbing out of the passenger side while her son Brandon killed the engine. Carol is 59. She's the kind of woman who volunteers at the church bake sale and makes sure everyone in town knows about it. She smiled at me from across the yard like showing up unannounced was doing me a favor. "Morning, baby girl," she said, already walking past me and through the front door. "We came to help sort through your mom's things." I hadn't asked anyone for help. Brandon followed her in without a word. He's 40, big through the shoulders, recently out of work, and carrying the look of a man who thinks the world owes him something. He went straight for the garage. By the time I got inside, Carol was already in the living room, opening cabinet doors. "Aunt Carol, what are you doing?" "Sorting, honey. Your mom had so much stuff. Somebody has to go through it." "I'm going through it. That's why I'm here." She waved her hand like I'd said something mildly annoying. Then she looked at me with that expression she's had my whole life, warm on the surface, something harder underneath. "Your mom told me she wanted me to have the bedroom vanity set," Carol said, straightening a stack of magazines that didn't need straightening. "She told me herself. Last Christmas. She never mentioned that to me." Carol tilted her head. "Well, sweetheart, you weren't exactly around much these past few years, were you?" From the garage, I heard Brandon moving things. Metal scraping concrete. The sound of boxes being opened that weren't his to open. I walked to the garage door. He was standing over my dad's old toolbox, the big red Craftsman chest that had lived against that wall for 30 years. "Brandon, those aren't yours." He barely looked up. "Relax. They're just tools. Put them back." He stared at me for a second like he was deciding whether to argue. Then he stepped back, slow, like he was being generous about it. When I went back inside, I caught Carol coming out of the hallway leading to my mom's bedroom. She was tucking something into her jacket pocket. Quick. Like she thought I hadn't seen. My stomach dropped. She'd been in there. Checking the vanity. Checking what was or wasn't behind that mirror. That afternoon, I called an estate attorney 2 counties over. Asked one simple question. My mom died without a will on file. What happens to the house in Ohio? He told me that without a surviving spouse and with one adult child, the property passes to the child under state law. So the house is mine. Legally, yes. Unless someone files a competing claim. Someone already had. I found out later that Carol had walked into the county court office that same morning, the very morning she showed up at my house, and filed a handwritten document she claimed was my mom's last will. One page, dated 8 months before Mom passed, leaving the house and everything in it to Carol Dutton. In Ohio, a handwritten will can be valid under certain conditions, the attorney told me. Proper signing, clear intent. You'll want to take a very close look at that signature. I thought about my mom's handwriting. I'd seen it my whole life. Something sat wrong in my gut, the way things sit wrong when your instincts are running ahead of your brain. If I did nothing, if I let Carol's claim go through, she'd take everything. Every drawer, every photo, every paper, every secret. And whatever else my mom had been hiding would disappear right along with it. Jake said it plainly that night. If you don't fight this, she takes everything your parents built. He was right. And I was just getting started. Now, if you're watching this and you've ever had a family member show up before the body was even cold trying to take things, drop a comment and tell me. I want to know I'm not the only one. And if you're not subscribed yet, please do it right now. Hit that button. 'Cause what happens when I finally meet Walter face to face, it still gives me chills just thinking about it. 2 days later, I drove to Grover. 45 minutes through flat Ohio farmland, past old barns and grain elevators and a church sign along the way that read, "The truth will set you free, but first it'll make you miserable." I almost laughed out loud. Walter Greer lived at the end of a gravel road. Small property, white farmhouse, a workshop out back with the door half rolled up. I could smell sawdust before I even cut the engine. He was standing on the front steps when I pulled up. Tall. Lean but solid, the kind of solid you get from years of real work. Silver hair cut short. And his eyes, gray-blue, deep-set. Those eyes were my eyes. I'm not going to pretend I didn't see it immediately. 'Cause I did. He didn't reach out for a hug. He just stood there, hands at his sides, and looked at me like someone who'd been waiting a very long time for something to finally happen. "Come in," he said. Kitchen was small and clean. Coffee already made, 2 mugs on the counter. And on the table, a cardboard box, the kind for storing important papers, with packing tape that had been cut open and resealed more than once. "Sit down," Walter said. "I don't know where to start." "Start with 1988, I said. He nodded, poured coffee, and sat across from me. "I met your mom in the summer of '88. I was doing custom tile work for the hotel where she managed the front desk. The old Riverside in off Route 40. She was 24. I was 31. He looked at the table for a moment. "It lasted about 4 months. Then she told me it was over. She'd met someone. Ray. 2 months after that, she was married. And then pregnant. With me," I said. "With you." He opened the box. Inside, a folder of papers, some copies of documents, and a sealed envelope with my name written on the front in handwriting I recognized the moment I saw it. "That's Ray's handwriting," Walter said, pointing at the sealed envelope. "He left that here in October of 2015. Drove out on a Tuesday. I hadn't seen him in over 20 years. Why did he come to you?" Walter set his hands flat on the table. "He was sick. He knew he didn't have long. He sat in that exact chair you're sitting in right now, and he told me 3 things. I waited. First, he told me you were my daughter. He said he'd known since you were 8 months old. A blood type test, pretty common back then. Your blood type didn't match his or Diane's the way it should have. He figured it out and he stayed. He said it was never a question." Walter opened the folder. "Second, he told me what your mom did. In 1994, Diane convinced Ray's mother, Lorraine Voss, to sign a paper transferring the timber rights on 55 acres of Voss family land in Licking County. Diane told Lorraine it was a property tax form. It wasn't. The rights were transferred to a company." "What was the company called?" I asked, already feeling like I knew. "Harmon Sisters, LLC. He looked at me steadily. "Harmon was your mom's maiden name, and her sister Carol's." "They set it up together," I said. "They did. Registered the company, then sold the timber rights to a logging outfit for $58,000. Lorraine never saw a cent of it. He let that land. Your grandmother was 77 years old. Her eyesight had been going for 2 years. She trusted her daughter-in-law." I felt sick to my stomach. "And the third thing," Walter continued. "Ray told me he'd written a letter the year you were born. Said he hid it where Diane would see it every single day but would never dare move it or throw it away. He looked at me, behind the vanity mirror, and he put my phone number on the back. He told me, when Callie calls, be ready." I stared at the mug in my hands. "He planned all of this," I said quietly. "He did. 9 years ago. I was back on the highway heading home when my phone rang. Carol. I almost let it go. I didn't. Where have you been?" Her voice was wound tight. "I've been at the house since 9. I had somewhere to be. Well, the memorial is Sunday. I've invited people from the whole congregation. Pastor Gibbs is doing a reading. It'll be beautiful." Her voice smoothed out into that practiced sweetness. "There's also some paperwork I need you to look at before Sunday. Just a simple transfer paper for the house. Your mom was very clear about her wishes, and I just need your signature to keep things clean and simple." I'm not signing anything right now. Silence. Then cooler. You're making a mistake, Callie. I've already told the whole church the house situation is settled. Then you told them something that isn't true. That's your problem to fix. Then Brandon's voice came on. He'd apparently been there on speaker the whole time. I hadn't known. Just sign the papers, Callie. Nobody wants this to drag on. I hung up. My hands were steady on the wheel, but my jaw was locked so tight my teeth hurt. She'd already moved ahead of me. Already told the story her way around town before I even knew what was happening. That's how people like Carol work. They win by moving faster than you can think. I thought about the box in Walter's kitchen. The name Harmon Sisters LLC. Carol wasn't just someone who helped cover up a family secret. She helped build the company that robbed my grandmother. And now she wanted my mom's house, probably because she knew that house still contained everything that could bring her down. Walter had given me a name before I left Grover. Sandra Keyes. State attorney. Office in Columbus. Ray hired her in 2015, Walter said. She's been holding something for you ever since. I called Sandra from the driveway of my mom's house, still sitting in my car. Her assistant put me through the moment I said Ray Voss's name. Sandra's voice was calm but warm, the kind of steady that comes from spending years helping people through the worst moments of their lives. Callie Voss, she said. I was beginning to wonder how long it would take. That was the second time in 3 days someone told me they had been waiting for me. My dad had spent the last year of his life building something, and I was only now starting to see the full shape of it. Your father set up a trust in your name in 2015, Sandra said. About $42,000. He wanted you to have resources available if things ever got complicated. They're getting complicated. I figured they might. He also left certified copies of certain property documents with me, the timber rights transfer, the company filing. Things he specifically wanted kept outside the family home, in case anything was removed or destroyed. I told her about the handwritten will Carol had already filed with the court. I'll need to see it, Sandra said. If that signature has been fake, that's a crime in this state. But more right away, I can file a challenge Monday morning and freeze the whole process. A pause. There's a memorial Sunday, you said? At the house? Yes. My aunt organized it without asking me. Would you like me to be there? Yes. Then I'll be there. And Callie, bring the original letter. The actual envelope. I hung up and sat in the car for a long moment. The November sky was that flat gray that settles in and doesn't move. My dad had built a safety net from the other side of death. It was time to use it. The next morning, Thursday, I walked across the street and knocked on the door of Beverly Holt. Beverly is 74. She has lived on that street since before I was born. White hair she keeps in a braid, sharp eyes, and the patience of a woman who has spent decades watching the world from her kitchen window and storing things quietly away until someone needs them. She opened the door before I even finished knocking. I wondered when you'd come by, she said. Get in here. I made biscuits. Her kitchen smelled like sage and coffee. She set a plate between us and sat across from me with the easy calm of someone who'd been holding one end of a conversation in her head for 30 years, just waiting for the other person to finally show up. You found something, she said. Not a question. A letter. Behind Mom's vanity mirror. Beverly nodded slowly. I don't know everything, she said. But I know some. She told me about a morning in the spring of 1994. She'd been pulling weeds near the fence when she heard my grandmother Lorraine over on our front porch, crying quietly. The kind of crying that isn't loud, just steady and worn out. Beverly went to the fence. Lorraine looked up and said, Diane took something from me. But Raymond won't let me talk about it. Those were her exact words, Beverly said. I've never forgotten them. Within a year, Lorraine had sold the rest of the property and moved into Shady Creek Senior Living. She passed there in 2003. Beverly refilled my coffee. I also remember a man, she said. Dark green truck. Would drive slow past your house in 89 and 90. Then he just stopped. She looked at me. Blue-gray eyes. Walter Greer, I said. Beverly nodded, like the name confirmed something she'd been carrying a long time. Your dad Ray was one of the most decent men on this street. But he always looked like a man carrying something heavy. That same Thursday afternoon, I went to the county recorder's office. I'd spent 7 years working as a paralegal before I switched to real estate title work, and both jobs teach you the same thing. Public records tell the truth even when people don't. Every deed, every company filing, every transfer is somebody's decision about money and trust. And when something went wrong, the paper trail almost always shows it. I asked for the full history on the Voss family land. The original deed went back to Ray's grandfather, then down through the family to Lorraine Voss in 1979. Then, a timber rights transfer. July 1994. Lorraine Voss to Harmon Sisters LLC. The signature was shaky. The handwriting of a woman in her late 70s with failing eyes. I pulled the company filing next. Registered in Ohio, June 1994, 1 month before the transfer. 2 members, Diane H. Voss and Carol R. Harmon. My mom and my aunt. Right there on a state document. The timber rights sold 5 weeks after the company was created. Buyer, Cumberland Ridge Logging Company. Sale price, $58,000. And it got worse. Cumberland Ridge had been bought out, but the land was still being logged. Small payments came in every 3 months, about $600 a quarter. Those checks were still going to Carol Dutton. Same address. For nearly 28 years. I did the math on my phone right there at the recorder's desk. Over $67,000. From rights my grandmother signed away thinking she was filling out a tax form. I photographed every page. Labeled the folder with the date. Carol wasn't just someone who helped cover things up. She built the company that stole from my grandmother and had been collecting off it for decades. And now she wanted the house, the one place where the evidence still lived. I got back to the house around 5 o'clock that evening. Carol was already inside. She had let herself in. I still do not know how she had a key. She had spent the afternoon moving furniture around in the living room for Sunday's memorial. Folding chairs borrowed from the church were stacked by the door. Couch was pushed against the wall. And the family photos were gone. Every framed picture that had hung in that hallway, my parents' wedding photo, my dad holding me at the hospital the day I was born, the 3 of us at my college graduation, my parents' 25th anniversary portrait, every single one gone. Taken down. In their place, 2 old black and white photos of my mom and Carol as little girls in matching dresses. You took down the family photos, I said. Carol didn't turn around. She was fixing a flower arrangement on the mantel. I'm decorating for the memorial. This is what your mom would have wanted. You didn't ask me. She turned then and gave me that smile. Patient. Practiced. The one that says you're being a child. Honey, you've been upset. That's understandable. Let me handle the details. You just show up Sunday and look presentable. Show up and look presentable. From the garage, I heard Brandon loading something into his truck. I walked out. He had 2 boxes of my dad's hand tools. His levels, his hand planes, a set of old chisels he had collected and kept clean for 40 years. Brandon, put those back. Relax. They're just tools. Nobody's using them. They're my father's tools. Put them back. He set the boxes down slowly, making a show of how patient he was being with me. When I went back inside, I saw Carol coming up from the basement. She had something in her hand, a small brass key. She slipped it into her cardigan pocket before she figured I was watching. My mom kept a small fireproof safe in the basement. Carol had the key to it. Sunday was 2 days away. I need to stop here for 1 second because let me tell you, at this point I was standing in my dead mom's house with a letter that said I wasn't who I thought I was, my aunt in the next room rearranging things like she already owned the place, and a stranger in Ohio who knew my name before I even said it. If any part of this story is hitting close to home for you, I want to hear about it. Tell me your story in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it right now, because what happened Sunday morning, I still can't fully believe it. I called in one more person that Friday night. Jake brought his cousin Marcus Webb over for dinner. Marcus had been doing investigative work for a local news station for 6 years. He was quiet, careful, and good at watching a room. I told him everything. He listened without stopping me once, which is rare. When I finished, he said, "I want to be at that memorial. Not as press. Just as a witness. You're going to want people there who understand what they're looking at. You think it's going to go sideways," I said. "Your aunt doesn't know yet what you found." Which means Sunday is her last real chance to lock things down her way. She'll push hard. He was right. Sunday came cold, with low clouds and a sky the color of old concrete. By 10 in the morning, cars lined both sides of the block. Carol had done her work. 40, maybe 45 people from Grace Fellowship filled the living room in folding chair rows. White lilies on every surface. A framed photo of Mom on a little stand by the fireplace, the one Carol had picked out, of course. Carol stood near the front door in a black dress, greeting every single person, dabbing her eyes with a tissue right on cue. Brandon stood near the kitchen doorway with his arms crossed like he was keeping watch. Beverly Holt was in the back corner, teacup in hand, quietly watching everything. Marcus arrived at 10:10 and found a seat in the middle. He blended right in. Sandra Keyes walked in at 10:15 in a dark blazer, leather briefcase, reading glasses on a chain. She introduced herself to Carol as a friend of the family from Columbus. Carol shook her hand, smiled, and moved right past her. Walter Greer was not in the room. He was 3 blocks away in his green truck, waiting for my call. 40-plus people in my mom's living room. Not one of them knew the woman they were there to remember had a 36-year-old secret standing right next to the door. Carol stood up at 10:35. Dabbed her eyes. Faced the room like she had rehearsed every single word. Diane was my best friend. My sister, my rock. My person for 60 years. Her voice cracked right on the word rock. She asked me personally to look after this house after she was gone. She wanted it to stay in the family. She wanted it to stay with someone who loved it the same way she did. She looked directly at me. And I know Callie understands. We all just want what's best for her. Several people nodded. A woman from the church choir pressed her hand to her heart. Then Brandon started moving through the rows with a card. White, oversized, in loving memory of Diane Voss printed on the front. "If you'd like to sign," he said, going row by row. I watched him hand it to Gerald Pitts, my dad's old fishing buddy. Gerald signed the front, flipped it over, and stopped. His pen hovered. I leaned forward and caught a glimpse of the back. Fine print below the signature lines. "We, the undersigned, affirm that Diane Voss expressed her clear wish to transfer ownership of the property at 714 Birchwood Lane to her sister Carol Dutton, and we wish to see that wish honored." They had hidden a property transfer inside a memorial sympathy card. I caught Marcus's eye across the room. He had seen it. I watched his jaw tighten just slightly. Card made its way to Beverly. She read the back. Set it face down on the empty chair next to her. Took a long sip of tea. When the card came back to Brandon, he counted signatures, frowned, and looked at me. "You didn't sign." "No." Carol appeared at my elbow. She touched my arm gently for the audience and guided me toward the kitchen. Kitchen that opened straight into the living room with no wall between them. Every word anyone said in there would carry to every single person sitting in those rows. "Callie, honey, you are being selfish." Her voice was soft but loud enough. "Your mom just passed and here you are making it about property. I'm not the one who put transfer papers inside a sympathy card. The warmth left her face like a switch had been flipped. Your mom told me you'd do this. Louder now. She said you've always put yourself first. She spent her last years in this house by herself while you were off chasing your career. She was here alone, Callie. You weren't. The room behind me went dead quiet. Brandon stepped up next to her. Just sign it. Don't embarrass yourself in front of all these people. I felt my throat tighten. 40-plus people, and I could feel every single one of them choosing a side in real time. The loving sister who showed up, or the absent daughter who couldn't even sign a sympathy card. Every part of me wanted to fight back, to explain, to defend myself. Instead, I said, I need 5 minutes. Carol blinked. She'd expected tears or a shouting match. She got neither. I walked out the back door and into the yard. Cold air hit my face hard. I stood next to the oak tree at the back of the yard, the one my dad planted the year I started kindergarten, and I let my hands shake. I let them shake for a minute. Then I pulled out my phone. Walter answered on the first ring. Can you come now? Bring the box. Already in the truck. 3 blocks out. Come. I walked back inside. Past Carol, who was standing at the kitchen counter looking satisfied. Past Brandon, who was collecting the sympathy card from the last row. Through the living room where people looked away when I came in. I sat down next to Sandra. Stay, I said quietly. I need you here. She opened her briefcase half an inch on her lap. I saw the edge of a folder. She nodded once. I sat back, folded my hands, and waited. 45 minutes. That's how long I sat in that room with 40-plus people while my aunt's version of reality hung in the air around me. I didn't explain myself. I didn't leave. I let Carol think she'd already won. The knock on the front door came at exactly 11:48. Brandon answered it. A tall man stood on the porch, silver hair, gray-blue eyes, a cardboard box tucked under one arm. I'm here for Callie, Walter said. Brandon looked him up and down. Who are you? Before Walter could answer, Carol was on her feet from across the room. Color drained out of her face in a second. Her hands found the back of a folding chair and gripped it hard. What are you doing here? Not a question. A flat statement from somewhere deep in her gut. She knew him. Instantly. Through 35 years, she still knew his face. I stood up. I invited him. Every head in the room turned. 40-plus pairs of eyes moving between me, Carol, and the man in the doorway. Walter stepped inside. He set the box on the coffee table. He looked at me. And for just a moment, the whole room fell away. It was the two of us, a father and a daughter in the same room for the first time in their lives. Beverly Holt slowly set her teacup down on the windowsill. She was looking at Walter with the quiet recognition of someone matching a decades-old memory to a face standing right in front of her. Pastor Gibbs stood up. Callie, what's happening? I looked around the room. The people who had come to remember my mom. At the aunt who had spent the past week trying to take my home. At the man who had waited 9 years for a phone call. Everyone, I said, this is Walter Greer. He's my biological father. And he has something you all need to see. Carol's face told me everything. She knew exactly what was in that box. I pulled the letter out of my bag. The original envelope. Yellowed, faded, my mom's name on the front in my dad's handwriting. 4 weeks ago, I lost my mom, I said. 3 weeks ago, I was cleaning out her bedroom and I found this tucked behind the vanity mirror. It's a letter written by my father, Ray Voss, in the year I was born. The room was completely still. Not one cough. Not one shifting chair. I unfolded the paper and read every word out loud. I had the test run when she was 8 months old. I know she isn't mine. But she is my daughter. I chose her. I will keep choosing her every day. If you ever tell her the truth, I will tell everyone what you and Carol did to my mother's land." I lowered the letter. Gerald Pitts had taken his glasses off and was holding them in his lap. The woman from the choir had both hands pressed flat on her knees. "My father knew I wasn't his biological daughter since I was a baby," I said. "And he chose to stay. Every single day for 28 years. I looked over at Walter. He was standing very still by the door, eyes red. "This man, Walter Greer, is my biological father. My mom kept him away from me for 36 years. She told him that if he ever tried to reach me, she would file a restraining order and destroy his reputation in this county." A low sound moved through the room like wind. The letter also mentions something else. What you and Carol did to my mother's land. I opened the folder and held up the first document. In the summer of 1994, my mom and my Aunt Carol convinced my grandmother, Lorraine Voss, to sign a paper transferring the timber rights on 55 acres of Voss family land in Licking County. They told her it was a property tax form. It wasn't. I set the paper on the coffee table where anyone could look at it. They created a company called Harmon Sisters LLC using their maiden name. They sold the timber rights to a logging company for $58,000. My grandmother never saw a single cent. The murmur got louder. My grandmother was 77 years old. Her eyesight was failing. She trusted her daughter-in-law. Carol shot to her feet. "Those are fake. You don't know what you're talking about. None of that is real." Sandra Keyes stepped forward. One calm step. "My name is Sandra Keyes. I'm a licensed estate attorney out of Columbus. These are certified copies pulled directly from the Licking County Recorder's Office and the Ohio Secretary of State's business records. They are public record. Any person in this room is welcome to look them up and confirm that for themselves." The silence that followed was something I had never felt before. It wasn't empty. It was full of people recalculating every story they thought they knew. "Mom." Brandon grabbed Carol's arm. "We need to leave right now." Carol didn't move at first. Then something shifted in her. The tears came, real or for show, I still can't say for sure. She turned to face the room. "We did what we had to do," she said. "That land was just sitting there. Lorraine's taxes were eating her alive. We were trying to help her." She pointed at me, her fingers shaking. "And you think you can stand up there and judge us? You don't even know who you really are. You were an accident, Callie. An accident your mom spent her whole life managing." That word hit like a fist to the chest. Walter spoke. First time since he had walked in. Low and certain. "She was never an accident. She was the best thing that happened to anyone in this family, including Ray. He told me that himself." Carol turned on him. "You don't get to speak. You weren't here. You were nothing." "I was nothing because your sister made sure of it," Walter said. "But Ray made sure it wouldn't stay that way." From the back corner, Beverly's voice. Quiet and clear. "I remember Lorraine crying on that porch, Carol. Spring of 1994. She said Diane took something from me, but Raymond won't let me talk about it. I remember it word for word." Carol looked around the room for one sympathetic face. She found none. Brandon pulled her toward the door. She stopped one last time. Looked straight at me. "You'll regret this. Your mom would be ashamed of you." The door closed. Brandon's truck engine fired. Tires on gravel. Gone. Nobody spoke for what felt like a full minute. Then Pastor Gibbs walked over and took both my hands in his. His grip was warm and steady. "Your father was one of the most decent men I have ever known," he said quietly. "And I think you just showed this whole room that you're cut from the same cloth." Gerald Pitts crossed the room and put his hand out to Walter. "You must be the tile man," he said. Lorraine mentioned a young fella years ago. Said you did good work. Walter shook his hand. Beverly brought Walter a cup of tea. Didn't say a word. Just pressed it into his hands and gave him a look that meant, "You're welcome here." Sandra moved to my side. "The handwritten will," she filed. "I'll challenge it first thing Monday morning. Based on the signature problems and what we've seen today, it won't hold up." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank your father. He set all of this up a long time ago." Marcus caught my eye from the middle of the room. He gave me one quiet nod. I looked at Walter. He was standing by the window, holding his tea, looking out at the street he used to drive slowly down 35 years ago without ever stopping. We didn't hug. We weren't there yet. But we were in the same room. And neither of us was leaving. Monday morning, Sandra filed the challenge at the Licking County Court before 9. She had spent the whole weekend going over the handwritten will Carol had submitted. The body of the document was close. Someone had clearly studied my mom's handwriting. But the signature had two clear problems. The capital D had a crossbar my mom never used, and the S in Voss curled the wrong way. Sandra had 18 verified samples of Diane Voss's real signature from tax papers and insurance forms. A court handwriting expert confirmed it within 2 weeks. The signature showed clear signs of copying rather than natural writing. Court froze the will. The house stayed in my name. Sandra also sent a formal demand letter to Carol asking for repayment of all money she had received from the timber rights, estimated at $67,000 over 28 years. "She'll fight it," Sandra told me. "But the paper trail is solid. The company filing, the deed transfer, the payment records, all of it documented." I asked about criminal charges. "You have a real case for forgery on the will and possibly elder financial abuse for the land transfer." I thought about it. Then, I don't want her in jail. I just want her out of my life, and I want the record to show what she did. Sandra was quiet a moment. "That's your right. The civil case will accomplish both. There's a difference between wanting revenge and wanting the truth to have real consequences." I was starting to understand that. Trust fund landed in my account on a Thursday. $42,000. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at that number for a long time. My dad had done this quietly. In the last year of his life, while he was sick, while walking hurt him while my mom was still in the house, he had pulled money bit by bit from a private savings account she didn't know about and built something for me. Something she could never touch. He couldn't confront her. That bridge had burned the year I was born. But he could build something behind the silence, and he did. Sandra had one more thing for me. A second letter. Sealed. My name on the front in my dad's handwriting. He had written it in 2015 and left it with her along with everything else. "Callie, if you're reading this, it means you found the letter. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you myself. I was scared you would think I loved you less if you knew the truth. But the truth is the opposite. I chose you every single morning for 28 years. Every single day. That was never hard. It was the easiest decision I ever made. Everything I've left with Sandra is yours. Use it however you need to. If Walter Greer turns out to be a good man, and I believe he is, give him a chance. He deserved better than what happened. So did you. You are my daughter. Always. Dad." I sat in that parking lot with the engine off for a long time. I read that letter 4 times. I cried every single time. Then I drove home and put both letters on the dresser. Right where the mirror used to be. Right where they belonged. The following Saturday, I drove to Grover. No plan. No folder. No notebook full of questions. I just got in the car and went. Walter was in his workshop when I pulled up. Country station on a paint-covered radio. Smell of sawdust and varnish. He was working on a small bookshelf, pine, simple and clean. He looked up when I walked in. Turned off the sander. I'm not trying to replace Ray, he said after a minute. I couldn't and I wouldn't. I know. So what do you want? I thought about it. 36 years behind us, a letter, a phone number, a box of documents, and a Saturday morning in a workshop. I want to start from here, I said. He looked at the shelf. Then at me. You want to help sand? I laughed. The first real laugh in 4 weeks. Came from somewhere deep down, somewhere that had been locked up, and it surprised me, the sound of it. He handed me a piece of sandpaper and showed me which way the grain ran. We didn't talk much after that. Just the sound of sandpaper on wood, the radio playing low, 2 people doing something small and ordinary side by side. He didn't try to be my father that day. He just showed me how to sand a piece of pine. And somehow that was exactly right. The story spread the way things spread in small towns, not through headlines but through the grocery store parking lot and the diner on Main Street in Sunday school. By the end of the week, the important parts were known. Enough for people to understand what had happened. Pastor Gibbs asked Carol to step away from her spot on the church's welcome committee. He called it a personal leave. Everyone understood it was permanent. 3 families who had been close with Carol for years quietly stopped returning her calls. Gerald Pitts told Beverly he had almost signed that sympathy card without reading the back, and that it scared him. Brandon lost 2 home renovation contracts in December. One of the clients told him directly, I can't have someone I don't trust inside my home. Carol called me once more, about 3 weeks after the memorial. You destroyed this family, she said. I was at the kitchen sink, looking out at that old oak tree in the backyard. The one my dad planted the year I started kindergarten. The family was already broken, Carol, I said. I just stopped pretending it wasn't. She didn't call again. I cut off contact with her and Brandon completely. No big announcement, no long letter, no dramatic final conversation. I just stopped answering. Stopped engaging. Stopped showing up to a situation that had been designed for decades to keep me small. Some people probably think that's cold. Maybe they do. Call it peace. Setting a limit with someone doesn't mean you've stopped caring about them. It means you care about yourself enough to stop accepting less than the truth. And the first time you actually do it, not just think about it, but actually do it, it feels like stepping off a ledge and finding out the ground was only 6 inches down the whole time. You were never as stuck as they wanted you to believe. The nights were the hardest part. During the day, I could keep moving. There were papers to sign, calls with Sandra, my regular work to keep up with. Staying busy is a good painkiller. But at night, alone in the house, the real grief showed up. I'd be washing dishes and hear my mom's voice in my head, just small stuff. Did you eat, baby girl? I'd walk past her bedroom and smell the rose water. I'd find her handwriting on a sticky note inside a kitchen drawer, call dentist, pick up milk, and my chest would tighten so hard I'd have to sit down. She lied to me for 36 years. She kept my father away from me. She helped steal from my grandmother. She let Carol build a life on a crime. She also drove through a snowstorm to bring me soup when I was sick at my first apartment. She called me every Sunday at 7 in the evening for 10 years without missing once. She kept every card I ever gave her in a drawer. I couldn't hate her. Some nights I tried. But grief doesn't work like a switch you can flip. Tenderness comes whether you ask for it or not, and it sits right there next to the anger. You don't get to choose which one sits down first. You just make room for all of it. I called Jake one night around midnight. I'm not okay yet, I said. But I think I'm going to be. Take your time, he said. I'm not going anywhere. 2 weeks after the memorial, a rhythm started forming. Not back to normal, I don't know if that's even coming. But something like a rhythm. Beverly from across the street started coming over on Thursday mornings with coffee cake. She never asked how I was doing. She'd just sit at the kitchen table and talk about ordinary things, her garden, a book she was reading, what the weather was going to do. It was exactly what I needed. Someone who didn't need me to explain anything. I went back to work at the title company. I threw myself into a case involving a disputed deed on a rural property, and while I was working on it, I wrote a short piece for a local legal newsletter about how older property owners can be cheated out of land rights, what warning signs look like, and what to do if you think something happened to a family member. Kept it factual and anonymous. The county clerk's office shared it on their website. A family attorney in Toledo emailed me to say it had helped one of her clients figure out exactly what had happened to her mother's land. Didn't undo anything, but it turned something painful into something useful. That felt like the first solid thing I had built since the floor dropped out from under me. Walter calls on Saturday mornings now. Short calls, 15 minutes, sometimes less. He tells me what he's working on that week. I tell him about whatever case I'm dealing with. Last Saturday, he mentioned he was building an extra chair. If you want it, I'll bring it by. When I hung up, I walked through the living room and put all the family photos back on the wall. Ray and Diane at their wedding. Dad and me at my first day of kindergarten. The three of us at my college graduation. And next to them, a new one. A photo I took on my phone of Walter in his workshop, mid-sand, sawdust on his flannel shirt, looking up at the camera with the slightly surprised expression of a man who isn't used to being photographed. My story isn't about erasing anyone. It's about finally seeing the whole picture. I want to talk to you for a second. Not about the legal stuff. About something harder to say. I used to think being a good daughter meant not asking questions. That being loyal meant accepting whatever story you were handed, even when something inside you said the pieces didn't add up right. I thought that pushing for the truth was the same as being ungrateful. That drawing a line was the same as slamming a door. I was wrong. Loyalty isn't silence. Family isn't a way of keeping you quiet. Carol used those exact words, family, loyalty, what your mom wanted, like tools to keep me from looking too closely. To make me feel guilty for wanting what I deserved. The basic right to know who I actually am. I cut off Carol and Brandon. No big moment. No letter. No call. I just stopped answering. Stopped showing up to something that had been designed for years to keep me manageable. Some people might say that's cold. I say it's peace. I think about my dad every day. Ray Voss, the man who stayed. For a while after I found the letter, I was angry at him for not just telling me himself. I'd lie awake and think, why didn't you just say it out loud? Why leave it all hidden behind a mirror and a phone number and a box in a stranger's workshop? But the more time passes, the more I understand. He was scared. Scared I'd love him less if I knew. Scared the truth would make all those years together feel like a lie. So he did what he could. He stayed, he planned, and he built a bridge from the other side of a disease he knew he wasn't going to beat. He didn't just write a letter. He drove to Walter's house when walking was hard. He hired a lawyer. He put together a trust. He collected every document he could find, made copies, sealed them in a box. All of it done quietly in 2015, the last year of his life, without telling a soul except Walter and Sandra. Some people show love with words. My dad showed love with planning. With care. With the kind of patient thinking that only makes sense when you know you're running out of time and you need to make sure the people you leave behind have what they need. He couldn't protect me from the truth. So he made sure the truth would protect me when it finally arrived. Both letters are framed in the hallway now. The one he wrote to my mom in 1989. And the one he wrote to me, which I read sitting in a parking lot in Columbus on a cold November afternoon in 2024. They hang on the wall where they belong. Not hidden. Not behind anything. Walter and I aren't doing weekly dinners or making up for 36 lost birthdays. That's not how this works. Not for us. Not yet anyway. But last weekend I drove to Grover. And the weekend before that. He had a new project, a corner cabinet, white oak, more involved than the bookshelf. He showed me how to measure twice before you cut and why and what happens when you don't. He doesn't over-explain. He shows me once, watches me try, steps back, and only steps in if I ask. When the shelf I'd been working on was finally done, I took it home and hung it in the living room. I sent Walter a photo. He texted back, "It's a little crooked, just like mine." I laughed so hard I knocked my coffee right off the table. Crooked shelf. The first thing I have ever gotten from Walter Greer. Not a last name, not a history, not money or a story. Just a habit of hanging things a little off level. I'll take it. We have time now. For the first time in 36 years, we actually have time. I don't know yet what that looks like, whether it turns into holidays and road trips and catching up on everything, or whether it stays exactly like this. Saturday mornings, a workshop, sawdust, a country station, and comfortable quiet. Either way, I'll be there. And he'll be there. That's how you build something real. One day at a time. One piece of wood at a time. If you're listening to this right now and you're sitting on a secret, or you think someone in your family has been keeping one from you, here's what I want to say. Truth doesn't tear families apart. Lies do. Silence does. Secrets do. Truth just shows you what was already broken. And once you can see the break, you can start building something that will actually hold. I know pulling that thread feels scary. Opening that drawer, making that call, asking that question, it feels like it might unravel everything. It might. Mine did. The family I thought I had doesn't look anything like what I thought. The story I grew up in was missing whole chapters. That is its own kind of grief. A real one. But here's what I got on the other side. 2 fathers. One who chose me before I could even speak, and one who waited 36 years for a phone call. A lawyer who held an envelope for 9 years because a dying man asked her to. A neighbor who held on to my grandmother's tears for 30 years until someone came to ask about them. A man named Jake who stood in a doorway and gave me one quiet nod because he knew I didn't need rescuing, just someone to stand with me. And the truth. The truth came with freedom. And I will take that trade every single time. My name is Callie Voss. I'm 36 years old. My dad was Ray Voss. My biological father is Walter Greer. My mom was Diane Harmon Voss. For the first time in my life, I know exactly who I am. 'Cause I stopped letting other people decide that for me. Truth doesn't come with instructions. But it comes with freedom. And that is everything. That's my story. I told it because I needed to. And I told it here because I think some of you needed to hear it. If this story moved you, if any part of it hit home, I'm asking you to do 3 things right now. First, hit that subscribe button. This channel is built on real stories, real people, real emotions, and every subscriber tells me to keep going. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here a while, thank you. Second, hit the like button. Takes 1 second and it helps this story reach someone out there who might really need to hear it today. Third, and this is the one I'm most excited about, drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Your city, your country, your local time right now. I love knowing where in the world these stories land. And if this story touched something in you, I want to hear it. Have you ever found a family secret? Are you sitting on one right now? Are you still deciding whether to make that call, open that drawer, ask that question? Tell me in the comments. Was it worth it? Would you do it again? I read every single comment. Every one. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for being here.